Came down to doing just a few simple things in order to finally lose the 5 kilograms. And these are things that you probably heard of, but you think it can't be that simple. But it is. It's simple stuff done repeatedly. So I'm going to tell you what those 5 things that I did are, so you too can start to implement them immediately. I'm going to take you through my journey of how it took me 8 months. I'm not even counting right. 8 months to lose 5 kilograms. Now you have to understand that I am a certified fitness trainer, and so it shouldn't really take me that hard, but it did. So a little backstory: sometime last year around July, I suffered a bit of loss in my personal life, and as with most people, I turned to food for comfort and support and just to be able to get through those hard times. So I was having more processed food in my diet than I usually would. I'm a sweet tooth, right? So I love the desserts and the cakes and the brownies, and I was having a little more than I should or than I normally would. My portions got bigger, and I just always felt like there had to be something in my mouth just to pass the time, just to cope with the loss that I was dealing with. And it wasn't like I said to myself, oh, I'm going to deal with this loss with food. It just happened, and that's how it happens with emotional eating, right? We eat as a way to relieve stress, as a way to cope with something. Sometimes it's with family members, right? And we're just eating because food is enjoyable. It's this thing that just helps us feel better about ourselves. And so that's how I came to add 5 kilograms during this period. Now, 5 kilograms might not sound like a lot of weight, and really, usually when I show people my before and after pictures or just pictures of me during a period where I've added weight, the response is always really funny. It's like 5 kilograms, I don't say it. But listen, I know my body just like you know your body. And you know how you start to feel when you're carrying that extra weight around. You might feel a little bit slower. You might not feel your best self. Your energy levels might drop. Your clothes start to feel tight. So even though to the outsider, or to someone who doesn't know you well or isn't you, it looks like you look perfect. Like, what are you complaining about? But it's your body. So it was my body, and I knew exactly what it was. I was in denial when this happened, when I added the 5 kilograms. Because, so usually I work out at home. I have like a whole area set up with my dumbbells and equipment and all of that. But prior to that, I had started going back to the gym to work out, especially leg days, because I needed heavier weights. My dumbbells at home were no longer challenging me. So I needed access to heavier weights. So I'd gone back to the gym, I was lifting heavier, and I could see the muscles, like my muscles were getting bigger, so I could see the effect of lifting heavier at the gym. So when I started to add this weight, I was in denial. I said to myself, you know what, it's just muscle mass. I usually weigh somewhere between 72 and 74 kilograms, depending on the day, depending on what I've eaten, depending on a number of factors. And maybe that's something we'll talk about on that day. Your weight is not a static number, it is a range, right? As the number on the scale started to increase, and I started to go from the 72 to 75, then it was 77, then it was 78, I said to myself, you know what, it's just the gym. Oh, your muscles are looking bigger, that's probably what it is. But deep down, I knew, because when I stood in front of the mirror and I did see the arms getting bigger and the muscles popping, and I liked what I was seeing, my gut was also hanging. It wasn't a nice picture. I didn't like it. So I knew it wasn't just the gym, but it was an escape and a good excuse for me to say, oh, it was the gym. But I knew that my diet wasn't optimal. I had strayed from my regular eating habits, again, because I was using that to cope with the loss that I had just suffered in my life. In August, I decided that I needed to lose the 5 kilograms. I needed to get back into routine. I needed to start eating right again. And it wasn't supposed to take me long, right? Because again, I'm a coach. This is what I do for a living. I've helped hundreds of women lose weight, learn how to lose weight, and keep it off for good. But then it was August, September, October, November, and this weight wasn't shifting. And so I'm going to tell you a few reasons why the weight didn't shift. Then I'll tell you what I did finally. One of the major reasons why the weight wasn't shifting was because I wasn't being consistent. I would have 4 days of eating healthy, mostly reducing processed foods, reducing sugary, salty, fatty snacks. And then the weekend would come. On weekends, usually I buy like a small treat for my kids and I and my husband. It's just like one thing for each person. But during this period, I was buying more than one treat. I would buy the one for the Friday night and then extra for Saturday. And then somehow on Saturday, we would order out again. And so during the weekends, I was going overboard with eating out and with the sweet treats and the fatty foods and the salty foods. And so whatever progress I made from Monday to Friday, essentially by the weekend it was like I was stagnant because I was overdoing it. And what usually happens when we overdo things, when we've had like some good days and then all of a sudden we derail our progress, usually we feel guilty, we feel bad, we feel this sense of shame. And then we're like, you know what, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? I might as well just continue. I might as well just have one extra one. You know what, the weekend is gone. I might as well just ruin Monday as well. And so the weekend would turn into maybe Monday. Then Tuesday would be like, it was just a cycle of doing good, a little bit of good, and then just doing bad to counteract all of the good, and I was remaining stagnant. And the funny thing is, with a lot of people, when we make this mistake, in our minds, we think we're being consistent because we only focus on the 4 or 5 days where we've been consistent on that one thing, and we kind of block out. And it's not like we mean to do it, it's just we focus on those things, and we kind of block out the days where we didn't eat as well. And so it's like, but I'm being consistent. Why am I not seeing results? Why am I not seeing results? And then we get frustrated. And in that frustration, we're like, oh gosh, why bother, right? This is what was going on. And this is why month after month after month, nothing was changing. But I kept exercising. I kept trying. I kept thinking about things that I could do and things that I could tweak and how I could get back into it. So essentially, I had to go back to the drawing board and revisit everything that I knew, just the basic things. I had to stop overcomplicating things. I had to stop thinking it was harder. I was like, look, buddy, you've done this so many times. You've helped so many people. You've done it personally in your life. It's really not that hard. Don't overcomplicate the process. Keep it simple. I revisited what my plate was looking like, my meals, what my meals were looking like in the moment. So number one thing I did was I started to prioritize protein. I don't want to count calories. I don't like to do it. For some people, it works. For me, it's just stress, and sometimes I focus a bit too much on details, and I get obsessive, and if things aren't done perfectly, it becomes a problem and I start to waste time. So I don't count calories, I don't do all of that. And so in prioritizing protein, what I started to think about every time I would want to eat a meal is what's the source of protein for this meal? Where is it coming from? So for breakfast, is that going to be like yogurt or eggs? For lunch, it could be like the chicken or beef or whatever, and same thing for dinner, maybe fish, right? So it was just always protein first, because protein helps you to feel fuller for longer. So just this simple act of thinking protein first made my meals more wholesome and more filling. The second thing was to cut down on ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods. Those sweet, sugar-filled, fat-filled, salt-filled foods. Now, I had been trying to do this in the past, and I would be consistent for a few days and then go off track again. So I had to go back to the drawing board. In the past, years before, when I was trying to cut down on my sugar intake, how did I do this? And one thing that has always worked for me is to set up my environment for success. It means to limit my access to these types of foods. That means if I walk into the kitchen and I open the fridge and I immediately see some chocolatey biscuits, I'm gonna grab it. If I look at my pantry and there's like, I don't know, chocolate or something in there, I'm gonna grab it. So I had to go through my fridge, through my pantry, and really just reduce my access to those types of foods and get them out of the house. And whatever stayed in the house were things that maybe my kids like, but I personally didn't like them, so I wasn't really going to grab them. And so by reevaluating my environment and optimizing my environment and setting it up for success, then I was reaching for those ultra-processed foods less and less. And so I went back to only buying treats for my family and I on Fridays, and maybe just one thing for that Friday. And because those things are high in calories, the more you eat them, the more you want to eat them. You quickly overdo it with the consumption and the calories. And so just limiting access really helped. And so the third thing I did, which I already just spoke about, is that I scheduled my dessert. So I was no longer just grabbing all these ultra processed foods whenever I wanted to. It was now back to Fridays and maybe a little on Saturday. And so I had that to look forward to. And this isn't going to work for everybody. For you, you might need maybe to have a little bit of, maybe a small block of chocolate every night after dinner. But the point is to think about those sweet treats, to schedule those sweet treats if you can, rather than just grabbing them whenever you feel like. If you put some thought into planning those treats, into when you want to have those treats, then you're going to be a bit more in control of how often you are having those things. So schedule your meals, schedule your treats as well when you schedule your meals. The fourth thing I did is I started tracking. Let me tell you, tracking is something we don't do well enough or often enough. I remember working with a lady in one of my group coaching programs, and that month in the program we were tracking, it was all about consistency, so we were tracking our activities. So everybody chose one thing that they wanted to track, anything at all. And this person in particular had picked exercise. She wanted to track her exercise because in her mind, she was exercising 5 days a week. Monday through Friday. She was every single day showing up for 30 minutes. So we have this thing called the consistency calendar. Essentially, you just print out the calendar, you write out the activity you're tracking, and every day that you do the thing, you just tick it out on your calendar. Very simple. And when she started to track, she started to realize that she was actually only working out 3 times a week and not 5 times a week. And it was just an eye-opener. So sometimes we think that we are doing all of the things exactly when we intend or plan to do them. But if you don't track, you actually won't see that, oh, you actually missed this day, or you plan to eat, you know, this meal and this meal and this meal, but then you had some nuts from your friend, or your husband was having like a meal and you joined him, or someone was having soda beside you and you took like half the bottle. You miss those little things. And so tracking really helps you to see exactly what you're doing. It takes the guesswork out of it so that you can make tweaks and changes where you need to. So I went back to tracking. I went back to taking pictures of my meals, which for me is just the easiest way to track. Taking pictures of my meals, and then at the end of the day, looking at the meals and looking at my portions and seeing if I was really prioritizing protein like I said I was, if I was really only, you know, having those desserts on Fridays. And there's so many ways you can track. You can take pen to paper, you can use like your notes app on your phone, and you can use pictures if you want. But tracking really helps you take the guesswork out of it, shows you where the lapses are so you can tweak things, make changes, and stay focused. And now the last thing I did, number 5, and this is one that people miss a lot, is I had to revisit old habits. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but sometimes you've been doing something a particular way for years and it's been serving you for years. It works well. It is an established part of your routine. And you keep on doing this thing, but for some reason in the season that you're in, that habit is no longer serving you. Maybe it's because you changed the environment, maybe you got a new job, maybe your schedule changed. But because we've been doing this thing for years, we just keep on doing it without realizing that it's no longer working, and actually it's giving us negative results. And that was one of the things that was like an eye-opener for me. There was a habit in particular, so there's this thing I do, right, where I usually eat 2 meals a day. So I'll eat maybe breakfast late around 11 or maybe 12, and then I will eat dinner. And sometimes I would get hungry in between that brunch or late breakfast and dinner. And it'll be like 4 p.m. and I'll be hungry. And so I would have a meal at 4 p.m. But because I just had a meal at 4 p.m., come 6 p.m., I would not be hungry. But I would not want to wake up in the middle of the night hungry because I had my last meal at 4 p.m. So essentially, I would force myself to eat a little bit of food around 6. This habit was no longer serving me for some reason, but I continued to do it. And because, you know, I was eating too many of the sweet things, the ultra-processed foods, because my portions are gotten bigger during this period, that habit was not helping at all. If anything, it was actually getting in the way of my weight loss progress. I had to take stock of my habits, go through them one by one, and then realize, okay, this isn't working, this is working, this is fine. And so what I did, I just tweaked it a little. If I got hungry between my breakfast and my dinner, I would have a light, very light meal. It could be fruits, it could be maybe yogurt and some fruits, maybe a light salad to just tide me over until dinner. So just that small tweak and just paying attention to my habits and realizing, oh, this is no longer working, and it's something we really don't think about. And so for you, it might be sleep. It might be that, you know, you like to maybe watch something before you go to bed, but now you're realizing, okay, in the beginning of that habit, you only used to watch 1 episode of something, but now somehow you're watching 3 episodes. And it's taking part of your sleep time. So maybe now you have to change it. Maybe now you have to stop watching, or maybe you need to set a timer for 30 minutes. And when it's 30 minutes, you put the TV or the iPad or whatever away. So you do have to evaluate your habits from time to time to see what is no longer serving you, so you can either do away with them, tweak them, replace them. And those are 5 things, but wait, I have one extra one for you. And this is a theme that we've really been exploring with the ladies that I work with in my group coaching program. And I first heard this about 2 months ago, and I fell in love with the concept. And it is this concept of imperfect actions. I see it very often when we're trying to lose weight. We expect to go from, you know, eating all of the wrong things, not exercising, not drinking enough water, not sleeping enough, and all of those things. And these are things and habits we've been doing for many, many years. We expect to go from that to, in 1 week, eating all of the right things, sleeping on time, exercising 5 times a week, and ticking all of the boxes every single time. And when we don't, which we won't, right? Because that's just life. Nobody does all of these things perfectly all of the time. When we don't, we get discouraged, we get sad, we get upset. And what usually happens is people abandon their goals, abandon this new path, this new fitness, wellness journey that they are on, because it's like, if I can't do it perfectly, then what's the point? We overestimate how much progress we can make by being perfect. And we grossly underestimate how much progress we can actually make from taking imperfect actions consistently. So you've said you're going to work out 5 times a week, but then you end up working out 4 times this week, maybe even 3 times. Those are imperfect actions. The point is you still showed up. So rather than being upset that you didn't tick your boxes perfectly and do 5 times, you should be happy you showed up 3 times and then show up again next week. If you plan to have vegetables with every meal, but somehow you only had vegetables with one meal every single day, instead of being upset, you should focus on the fact that you did that one thing. Even though it was an imperfect action, you did it consistently for the 5 days or 7 days of the week, and then plan to do it next week and maybe do it better. Taking imperfect actions consistently is how we make progress, is how we become successful with that thing that we're trying to do. So don't be discouraged that your actions are imperfect. Rather, embrace, look for ways to make your actions better, but continue to be consistent. Now, if you need a little bit of help with consistency on your fitness weight loss journey, I have a free guide for you, and I'm going to leave the link to that guide in the description box. Make sure to click on it, get that guide. It's going to be simple things, but don't overthink it. There is power in doing those simple things consistently. So get that guide, start to apply those things. And I hope this was very helpful with your health and wellness or weight loss journey. I hope that you really do implement these 5 things. I didn't do any type of detox. I didn't do any kind of restrictive dieting. It was really all just simple things. And as you can see from the pictures, there really is a difference. So I hope this was helpful. I will catch you on the next video.